I'm Kathryn Alexander, founder of Bridge to Partnership and certified conversational intelligence, or CIQ, coach. So today we're going to explore a little bit about 3 levels of conversation and why they're so important. One of the brilliant things about conversational intelligence, in my opinion, is that it is so tightly tied to science. And what that means is that we have done so much research about understanding how our brain works and how we are hardwired to work together or to protect ourselves from each other. Both of those are equally important, but very different. And how our normal day-to-day relationships and working together triggers those kinds of things in us, triggers reactions and responses from our nervous system, from our brain, from our body, to each other and to ourselves. And when we understand that, we can work with it instead of having it get in our way. So the 3 levels of conversation can help you think about basically the conversation and the intent of the conversation, and that's good just to know, to be more effective. But it also means that you can kind of determine whether the level that you're using is appropriate for what you're trying to achieve and how to shift from one level to another. And it also helps you realize that when you're getting pushback or resistance from people, whatever you've done or said, or the way you've done or said it, has pushed people back here to their amygdala, where they're protecting themselves in some kind of way. And they could be protecting their ego, their belief system, their status, all sorts of things. But when they're protective, they're not open. That's the point. And when they're not open, they're not really hearing you. They're not able to work with you, maybe in the way in which you'd like to be worked with. Something that would really be effective and solve the issues that you're trying to deal with. So understanding the 3 levels is the start of that ability to sort of embody that understanding and conversation. Now, each level has its appropriate use, and that's important to recognize that there's a time for everything. It's being inappropriate or doing it unskillfully that causes problems. So the first level of conversation, you would think we would have mastered, but actually we ignore often. And that's just being informational. The first level of conversation is providing all the information that people need to actually be effective, to do whatever they're being asked to do. And we think we are. If I give you $500, can you buy me clothes? Sure, you could do that, but you can't. There is so much information being left out of that conversation that actually you're functionless. There's nothing you can actually do. There's no action you can really take to make that happen because you don't know so much. So we think we hear. It's the language we understand, but it has actually no sense. It's really useless. And we do this all the time because we take shortcuts and we make assumptions about people and things and places. So being clear that you want something to happen and being clear about what exactly that is and what the time frame is and how that should look for you so that you're happy with the results is the first level of conversation. Being sure to include all the information that people need. The other part of this is if people are really trusting when you're delivering this information, then they will have the confidence to ask you for things you leave out. If they're not really trusting, then they'll tend to say, sure, okay, and go off, and then later go, oh, well, she didn't tell me this, and she didn't tell me that, and wow, how does she expect me to do? You get all that kind of stuff. So you as the speaker have the responsibility of making sure that everything you need to have said is in the conversation that you say. That does not necessarily mean that person is going to hear that for a lot of reasons. They could have just thought of something. It could have triggered something that they need to do or remember or have to get. And science says that we space out every 15 seconds anyway, trying to connect internally with our own memories what is being told to us outside. So there's sort of a spot in most conversations where we aren't conscious. And if something important happened in that space, we didn't get it. So the other part of being effective at level 1 is to make sure that what you said is what people heard. And you do that by asking them to repeat to you. And if you do that often enough, you'll get skilled, and it won't sound like you're reading a script or doing something from memory. Okay, so I told you the 5 things I need. Can you tell me what they are? So that I'm sure we're on the same page, kind of thing. When you can do that, it really is helpful. So that's level 1. Level 2 has to do with having a position. So if you are the expert and you really need to have people do exactly what you say, maybe there's a set process or a procedure that is standard and is required, and so they actually have to do this, that's a really good use for being positional and directive. However, if you're doing something with somebody that requires some initiative on their part, the more directive you are, the less initiative they're going to take. When you are directive, when you're telling people to do something very specific, to be you in essence, that's sort of scary. They're not you. So that means that they have to live up to a standard that is not their own and that they're not totally clear of. So again, if people feel safe, then they'll ask you questions about that. Okay, so you said I have to do this and this and this. Does it have to be in this order? If I miss a step, is it going to be a catastrophe? Those kinds of conversations. If you're not having that kind of conversation, if people are going, okay, sure, no problem, they're probably not hearing you. So that's your notice to say, I'm insisting on this for this reason, and these are the sequence of steps. So I want you to repeat them back to me so that I know that you've heard them and that we're clear about that, because they're really important. That's a different kind of conversation. Sometimes, especially in level 2 conversations, we are so sure we're right that that's actually what we're insisting on. Not that they do it, but that we're right. And if I'm right and what I'm saying is exactly what you're supposed to do, then people are pulling back. Okay? So you're creating a situation where they really can't hear you and they really can't respond, and they're certainly not free enough to ask questions for clarity if they didn't get it or don't remember it or whatever. So being right can be a problem. It can really block communication, even if you are right. So learning how to tell people what you want and then to ask questions so that you know that they have heard you, being open to changing if they have a better suggestion. Okay, so this is the way I normally do it. What do you think? Have you done this before? Is there another way that you're more comfortable with? Those kinds of things open up that level and allow you to really communicate in a way that will serve both of you better. It allows both people to bring their skill and experience to the table instead of it only being you bringing your experience and skill to the table. Now, the third level of conversation is really different, because in the first 2, they're all about the present pretty much. You may be trying to create the future, but you're trying to replicate something from the past into the future. The third level of conversation, the transformational level, is really about co-creating something that didn't exist before. So you're working with someone to get their input so that you can solve a problem in a new way or a more effective way, or you can think more deeply about something so you can get new insights. You really need them to step up into their power and to really contribute from the experience that the experience that they've had, from their own knowledge and from their own wisdom. And to open that up, to create a space that people are safe enough to maybe contradict you in some sense, or to offer something that may seem a little out there or weird or unusual, certainly not the normal way of doing business. To make that space that safe for people to do that, you ask questions. And so it's like, I've normally done things this way. What's been your experience with that? So now you're asking for their experience, so they feel free to give it to you. So learning to phrase questions in a way that expresses curiosity about what the other person can offer is the key to being successful at level 3 conversations. When you get it right, you'll find yourself in a conversation with people that has a great amount of enthusiasm, energy, joy, excitement, because you're going, oh yes, and oh yeah, we get this. It's very animated as a rule. It's very exciting. You're both bringing yourselves to the table. It's really a conversation about peers. So even if there is a difference in power or authority, when you get into those kinds of conversations, that disappears. And you're both on the same page, the same